All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm excited for the second part of the intimacy series. I'm excited for some of the things we're going to talk about today, and a lot of it actually is going to build on the first lesson. So if you haven't had a chance to watch that yet, I would encourage you to please go back, click on the link. There's an active link now. I know there was some trouble with it, but I would encourage you to watch that first because a lot of what we talk about today is going to build on that. And so I was thinking about what would be helpful to share. And I think, so what I want to talk about first is how the fact that I see every couple, every individual, really, every case through the lens of that figure 8 diagram that we drew up in the first lecture. Everything, like, it's almost like, you know how you go to the eye doctor and you got these little things he puts over your eyes and he tells you which ones, can you see here? No, and he gives you another one. So EFT is the lens through which I see everything. And for me as a therapist it's so valuable because it's grounded in attachment theory, kind of what we were talking about, the idea of how important emotional connection is. And when we don't get it, we don't do very well. And so this model was created on the foundation of what we as people are wired for, which is emotional connection. And when we don't get the emotional connection that we need, we go to fight or flight and all these problems happen. And so this EFT lens has saved me in every situation because all I need to do is rely on the model to walk them through the process that helps them get the result that they want, which is emotional connection, or to be able to heal and repair or develop even a greater sense of closeness. And so what I was thinking would be helpful today was to bring up that diagram again. And I want to go over 3 different examples of very common things that people get stuck with. And again, as a therapist, I want to kind of put you in my head so you can see what I see, because I have this EFT lens through that I'm looking through. So once you understand a little more about how this can apply to these situations, the hope is that you're going to be able to take that same perspective to apply it to your situation. Because the principle is the same, regardless of what the fight or the disagreement or the trigger or whatever struggle is at the moment, regardless of what's happening, the stuff underneath, the emotional undercurrent, which again will make a little more sense as we go into this, that's always the same. So if you know what to do, so I guess this is my thought on therapy. My goal is to get people what they need as quickly as possible. No one wants to be in therapy for 10 years and going over the same fights over and over again. And when therapy lasts for a really, really, really long time, it's usually because people are putting out the fires and the fight of the week. We come in, he did this, she said this, and you just try to resolve that one single incident. And then, of course, next week, something else is going to pop up. So then you spend all your time resolving these small or big incidents. But without learning the tools or the framework to put those incidents into, then you're going to be reliant on therapy forever. And I don't want that personally for the people that I work with. I want people to get the framework to then apply that to any situation that arises. And that's how moving forward is sustainable. So I want to share my screen. Let me flip this over here. There's a whiteboard that I can draw things up on. All right. So for the first example, what I was thinking about was, let's see. Okay. And again, you can fit any example into this, and I want to show you how you can. But there's this figure 8. And again, above the line are the behaviors and like higher level emotions. Below the line are these vulnerable, softer emotions. And so the example that I want to share is I was working with somebody recently. Let's see. Okay, so their situation was she didn't have any trust because of the fact that he would text other people. And so, let's see, let me move this out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to put this up here. He would text other people. And in his mind, and I believe him when he says this, there was nothing to it, right? It was like his old hairdresser. Like he and his friend used to go to this lady who did their hair, and he would like send her a picture of something randomly. And there was no history of betrayal or infidelity. So in his mind, he was just like, okay, it's like she's my friend. I'm going to text this friend. That was not how she perceived it. So what happens is in these instances, you can put any behavior here, but at the surface, right? When she sees him texting other women, This is an arrow. Hopefully it's not too messy as we go. But this behavior creates a feeling for her. Underneath the surface, actually, I don't know if I want to messy it too much. Underneath the surface, when she sees him texting, she goes to this place of fear. And she feels overwhelmed because she doesn't want somebody to come in between them, which of course makes sense, right? Of course she's going to be afraid. And so in their pattern, when she gets afraid, it comes up above the surface and it turns into being critical or yelling or blaming. We can add frustration, anger. Like those are the higher level emotions that are there, but they create distance between us and our partner. And so when she got upset because she was scared, right? She was scared naturally. So when she get upset, yell, attack, he would experience that as, right? That triggers a feeling inside of him. And he go to the spot of feeling not enough or shame, or that sent him the message that they were disconnected. So he felt sad. It was hard for him because he intentionally was not trying to hurt her. And so when she would attack and yell and get caught in all these small little things, it created pain for him because he wants to feel close to her. And in the cycle, because again, this is what we work on in couples work, is what do you do with these feelings? In the pattern, he didn't do anything very productive with them. He shut down, or he avoided, or defended. So of course, right, when she sees him, I could even add minimize there. It was just a friend. She was the hairdresser. I've been going to her for 5 years, right? Minimize, defend, do all that stuff. And when she sees this behavior on the surface, that reinforces, I'm alone, I don't matter, right? Don't matter, alone, sad. And then is thinking like, I can't stay with this person. I can't be with this person because they don't understand how damaging this is. This is what she said. Like fundamentally, if she thought that was wrong and he did not, she's like, there's nothing I can do here. And so as we spent some time with this, again, there's this big picture view here. The goal in EFT, or in couples work, as I like to work with couples on, the goal is to help them get in touch with what's underneath the surface. Because by being able to share what's underneath the surface creates a totally different interaction. So instead of her yelling and blaming and being critical, and then him defending and avoiding and saying it's not that big of a deal, they get stuck there, just as any couple would. So what we did was I wanted to go really slow with her because she quickly jumped up into above the surface. So like every time that happens, I'm on it, right? Interrupt that and then guide her what's underneath the surface. And I would say, so help me understand, what does it feel like for you when you find out that he's texting somebody else? And of course, again, I'd get a surface like, I'm pissed. I can't believe he would keep doing this after all the times that I've told him not to, and just go on this thing. So I'd have to interrupt again. And one of the things that I think as I work with couples over the years, I try to simplify this as much as possible. So I think I've got the most simple way to describe this yet, and I want to explain this to you. So the way this works is there's an event or a behavior which then sends a message, which then creates a feeling. This is super important. So I want to explain this. There's an event or a behavior. Let's take him texting another woman, right? That sends the message, right? This, like, it's almost like this area right here, this line here is the message. What message did she get when he was texting other women? For her, the message was the door is now open for somebody to possibly come between us. And as a result of that specific message, the feeling that was created was fear of loss. She did not want to lose him, of course. He's important to her. And so when I'm working with clients, it's so valuable to see it through that lens of what happened. One of the most important things is, what message does that send to you when that thing happens? Because it's so easy to say, well, this is what happened, and now I'm so mad because he did this or she said this. I can't believe this. And you get lost in the surface when really it's the message that creates the feeling which turns into a behavior. You see what I'm saying? So for her, the message was, the door is now open. I could potentially lose the person who I'm supposed to be with forever. And the feeling of that is fear. So when I ask her that question, and this is something you all can apply in your own relationships, what's the message you're getting when X happens? And so what I said was, okay, I want you to, can you please share that with him? I get her down into the fear and the sadness and the feeling, the vulnerable emotions. I said, can you please share that with him, that when you get the message that somebody is coming between you guys, can you help him understand how scary that is for you? Because you don't want to lose him. He's that important to you. And so she turns, tells him that message, and says, when this happens, I get scared because the message I get is that I'm going to lose you. Somebody else is going to come between us, and I can't bear that happening. That interaction down here underneath the surface, when he sees the fear and the hurt and the loneliness, the sadness, he immediately said, like, so before I checked in with him, I asked her, what was that like to share? And she says, I've never told him that before. And so I thought, like, this is perfect then, because he only sees what's above the surface here. So when she shows him this part and says, hey, I'm scared to lose you because you're important to me, these are completely different messages that he's getting, right? So he sees the fear, and immediately he says, I don't want to do those things anymore then, because I don't want to hurt her. It wasn't my intent to ever hurt her. This person that I'm texting is just a friend. But if it means this much to her, to my wife, like, done. It's easy. I'm not going to do that anymore. And again, I wanted to just pause right there and say, do you notice what's happening as we're stepping out of this negative cycle and creating a moment of vulnerability? Your partner is there and he responds to that. And most people do. There are, of course, instances when we share in a really vulnerable way, in like a textbook way, if you want to say, but then it doesn't get received. And we'll talk about why that's the case. But most of the time, the majority of the time, when we share in a vulnerable way, our partner hears us so differently. And when it does get missed, there's usually pain underneath the surface that blocks them from being able to hear it. So we don't say, like, okay, let's say she takes a risk and shares in a vulnerable way, and he just says, well, but honey, I already told you. It's like, why are you scared? You don't have to be scared. I said that this person didn't mean anything, right? And there's a miss there. So then I would just kind of interrupt that and then explore what's going on for him right now. What's the feeling for him when he hears that from her? And then I kind of explore from in that way, and then have him share that back. Because usually you kind of, like, I imagine this, like, it's like a rope that gets knotted up. In therapy, all I'm trying to do is just untangle the knot. So I'm untangling this knot, right? They get stuck up here. So untangle it by sharing what's happening down here. And a lot of times it's received really well. And when it's not like, oh no, what do we do? It's like, okay, there's a knot there. Let's just go in and untangle that and see what happened, what got triggered inside of him. And then you create a different interaction, which then she feels better because he was responding differently. And so this was the example that I wanted to share, one of them, the first one really. And when he hears her share this in a soft way, or these softer emotions, like, the response is a very easy, okay, done. I'm not going to do that anymore. Even though I don't see it's a problem, it's not an issue for me. This lady's not a threat. For you, it is. And I now know on a deeper level that it is, because you're sharing with me these feelings underneath. So the thing that I tell couples is the way to create change, the fastest way to create change, isn't to get stuck on the top of the surface and say, well, like, don't text this person and stop texting this person, and why are you answering that call, and deny this friend request. It's to be able to share the feeling connected with those events because of the message. So I want to explore another example just to show you again how this works. So second one here, let me erase this, clear, all drawings, okay. So I hope this is resonating. Again, I think another example can help. I have 3 total ones. Oh, that's too big, hang on. Same cycle, right? I always see it through this lens, and this model saves me in any situation. And again, it's not that I'm this all-star, know-it-all, like, the best person out there, but I've worked so hard to be able to identify. And every time I hear something, I'm thinking in my mind, I'm just putting things into these different quadrants, right? Oh, that was above the surface. That was a critique. She's being critical here. Oh, he's defending here. Or, oh, he's minimizing here. And then you fill out the picture. And then once you have the picture, you can create a new interaction by helping them step out of it. So the next example that I want to give is there was a situation where there's some infidelity. And the man that I was working with had kissed another person, kissed another woman. And every time she tried to bring up her pain, this is a super common situation. Every time she tried to bring up her pain, he would defend, minimize, and avoid. And of course, when that happened, she would get louder, blame, attack. There's other things that we can fit into the cycle, but those are like the main moves in this dance for them. And they'd go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and get stuck. Same process. Anytime I hear this is what he's doing, I'm always thinking, well, what's happening underneath for him? Why is he defending? Not he's this narcissist and I can't believe he can't see how much this hurt her. That doesn't help. It's just, oh, I just get curious. What is happening underneath the surface? Just like you can. Whenever you get stuck in this pattern, try to get curious. Okay, I'm getting upset. I'm getting loud. I want to attack. Get curious. What's happening for me underneath the surface? So for her, right, it's much easier to identify that. It's fear. Fear is the core thing that drives us all. And it's usually in any instance that this cycle flares up, at least somewhere. Not always, but a lot of times. Fear and sadness, and she felt alone. So of course, when she feels this pain, she wants to get him to understand this, but it's done in this way. And as I spend time with him, again, I'm getting curious, what's happening underneath this defending? Why, what's going on? Underneath for him, he would go to shame. Big shame for him. And so I want to spend a minute with this because this is one of the most common responses if you ladies are working. And so I got a little feedback saying that please include things for the husbands to do because sometimes for maybe a lot of these husbands might be willing to watch this. So if I can speak for a minute to the husbands, this shame, there's so much shame in these acting out behaviors. And I want to spend some time getting into how to unpack shame. But when he felt shame, naturally, he's going to avoid because he doesn't want to feel bad. None of us do. And so anytime she got upset and blamed and attacked, he felt shame. Even independent of her, right? Let's say like there's this block here. This model is a non-blaming model. It's not, okay, she gets loud, which makes him feel shame, so this is her fault. That's not it at all. It's just when this happens, going back to what I said earlier, it's how is that perceived? What's the message that you're getting? So we're not blaming her for not approaching him in the best way. And then this is, hey, husband, it's not your fault. It's her fault. She's acting in this like escalated manner. Don't worry about it. No, it's all we want to do is take this thing and figure out what's the message, right? Message or the perception from his view of her behavior. The perception, the message he gets in these moments is, I'm going to lose my spouse. I'm a failure. I'm a bad person, which is shame. We go a little further into that, right? There's shame, which is not enough. Take the caps off. Not enough. Bad person, unworthy. Something that I learned about that I really liked how the trainer framed it. She says that shame is an emotion that blankets. It acts as like a blanket to the emotions that are really underneath, which the core emotions, right? Sad and fear. So you've got these two, let me move this over here. So these are like blanket emotions, right? They cover up the sadness and fear. And what we see in the cycle is the shame. Immediately he goes to the spot of, I'm not enough. I'm a bad person. He's already hard on himself because of this experience. So of course he tries to avoid it and move away and not talk about it and go into another room or create distance. And so What I did in the situation was the same. It's always the same process, which is again why it's so like this is such a golden way of looking at it, because once you learn the process, you can then implement this on your own. Because there's no way, quick little sidebar, there's no way to avoid getting stuck in these cycles. It's impossible. There will always be something that triggers a fear or a pain underneath, because again, it's the message that we misinterpret sometimes. And sometimes it's not like a misinterpretation. Something that's done, like acting out, causes hurt. It's not like, oh, I perceive this, like, no, it causes pain. And so when couples understand this is how the process works, you just recreate it every time you get stuck. And so for him, I spent some time with him underneath the surface. We got in touch with, what is this, right? Shame. I feel terrible about myself. I hate talking about this. I already feel like this is the biggest jerk ever. And then with shame, you want to go a little further, because you don't want him to sit in, I'm bad, I'm terrible, I'm not enough, because that doesn't benefit him and it doesn't benefit her. Because when he is in, I'm bad and I'm unworthy, he withdraws, as most people do. Right? We withdraw or we act out. So this doesn't serve him. We don't actually want him to feel shame. We want him to feel guilt. Like, yeah, I feel bad that I did this. Now I want to make amends. That's guilt. That's not shame. So I want to get him out of shame and help him get in touch with what is it like for him. This is a question that I'll ask for people. What is it like for you to feel not enough? Or what is it like for you to see this hurt that she's experiencing as a result of this behavior? If you spend enough time trying to just go slow around shame and ask, like, what's that like for you to feel bad? They'll get to at some point, and they might need some help, which is fine. They're learning how to identify how they feel. They're going to get to, this is sad. This is sad for me, and I'm scared to lose her, or some variation of that. This is the piece we want to focus on. And so what I had him do was put these together, right? Put together, when I feel all of these emotions, I avoid. So I had said, okay, can you please turn and share this with her right now? That when you see her hurt because of what you've done, help her understand what's underneath the surface and how that relates to what's above the surface. And so he turns to her and says, the reason why I avoid talking about this subject is because I feel so bad about myself. This is so painful for me to know that you're hurting and that I caused it. I don't know how to deal with that, so I avoid it. It's not that I don't care about you. It's not that I don't care about your pain. I just don't know how to handle that, so I have to shut it down, and then I create distance or I blame you. When she heard that message, it was so fast that she softened, because for once and finally, she got to hear what was underneath the surface, the reason why he would avoid and tell her it's not that big of a deal. It only happened once, and it was just a kiss, or what all of what he used to say. When he let her in on what's underneath the surface and said, the reason why I do that is because I feel so terrible about what I've done, and it's painful for me knowing that you're hurting because of it. And I care about your pain. I just don't know how to help you right now. Immediately she softened, because it was this like, aha, hey, he actually does care. When it looks like, again, on the surface, he's not affected by my pain, when I see this wall and I can't get through it, she interprets, again, going back to the message that sends her is, he doesn't care. He's not affected by this. He doesn't think it's a big deal, which then the fear shows up. This could happen again. If he isn't affected by this and he doesn't care, what's going to stop him from doing this again? So by sharing what was underneath the surface, and again, guys, this is what's so important for you, is to be able to learn. It's a process, but it's learning the process to get in touch with how you feel, sharing that directly, because that creates a completely different interaction. So again, once you have those moments, it reassures her, it brings a sense of comfort, and then she can help in this process as well and say, like, listen, you're not an unworthy bad person, but what has happened in the relationship has deeply hurt me. And you guys can work together to help support each other in this, to be able to get the resolution that you need. But again, it starts step number one. And again, we're not going for a full repair and have her step in and heal his pain right away. We want to sequence this in a proper way. So we start with him sharing this feeling, to clarify why he does what's above the surface, which then creates a moment of like, that's a moment of connection. She gets that reassurance and is like, wow, I needed to hear that because for so long I've felt like you don't care. And then he says, no, yes, I do, right? And reassure. And then we kind of have that moment there. So again, I hope you're starting to see this. There's one last example that I want to share. In this one, I'll go a little bit faster just because you're getting the way that this works. So there's a lot of questions on the group with regard to sex and how triggering that can be. And I want to show you it's the same process. So there is one person who talked about how sometimes even a kiss can trigger this cycle. And one thing that's so cool to know is that the content of what happens is secondary to the pattern. So it doesn't matter if it's like you get triggered over a kiss, or you see him on his phone, or if he gets triggered by like a look, right? It doesn't take much to spark this pattern up. It could be a look or a tone. You said one word, but the tone sent the message, I'm in trouble, or I'm bad, I did something wrong. That sparks this whole cycle up. And so what happens in this example that I was referring to, if there's a kiss, then it triggers like pain, triggers fear. It can trigger, she didn't actually mention what exactly the feeling was, but it was more, I think about this other woman. They're like a situation of an affair, right? A kiss can trigger memories of, well, you did this with somebody else. So what I would do if I was working with that person, I would get in touch with, what is that like for you when you get triggered? What's there? Pain, fear, sad, not important. You fill out this quadrant here. And when it's lightning fast, these patterns are so quick that you mostly then notice like anger above the surface. Anger, we kissed and I'm just so upset at him because he did this to us, which is true, right? If he steps out of the relationship, he caused pain and his action did that. What we want to do is fill this out because this kiss brings up a memory, right? Sends that message, brings the memory, creates this pain, which then above the surface, this is so often what happens for couples. They want to work towards intimacy, and when the kiss happens, then they stop, a hard stop. Nope, we're not going to do this anymore. I'm not ready. Avoid. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm going to ask you to leave. Any other behavior? Think about your own behaviors. What happens in these moments for you? That's what you put up here, right? It's just the framework, but it's usually a hard stop. Like we're done. And then like, I'm mad at you, get away from me. Now there's a separation. This is not what we want, because what happens is that separation again triggers a feeling that can be fear for him, fear, inadequacy. And then again, it's more of the same. It's more of the same. Above the surface, avoid. This is never going to get better. We catastrophize. I'll pay for this forever. This happened 5 years ago and it only happened once, but I'm going to live this in this stuck place forever. We get stuck in the same figure eight. So the same process applies with regard to triggers, which I think is so valuable, right? What we want to do in that moment is stop the interaction. Or in other words, what I mean is like, don't go further until this pain is resolved. So you stop. There's a perfect moment in this moment to be able to start to repair. The more you're able to, so what I would suggest, if I was working with a couple, what I would say is, after you get in touch with this, right? When we kissed, I had the memory that he was kissing somebody else or whatever the situation was, and this is what I felt. Have her get in touch with this, and then I would have her share that with him. Say, when this happens, I get so hurt. It just brings back so much pain and loneliness and feeling like I'm not enough. When you share this message, again, that creates a chance for him to be able to step in and comfort and reassure. That does not happen when we hard stop the building towards intimacy. We stop kissing. I tell you to get away from me. I can't even look at you right now. He can't reassure you. He can't support you in that moment because you're sending him away, or however you're managing the pain above the surface. And I understand why you would, right? It's not that you're bad for doing this or you're doing this wrong. It's not that at all. It's when that happens, that creates a distance between you guys. Now he can't step in and help you with that pain. The fastest way to heal pain is to do it with him. The reason is, number one, we're wired that way. We're biologically hardwired to get comfort from somebody else when we're in pain. Number two, the reason why it's going to happen fastest that way is because he's the one who caused it. No amount of reaching out to groups or family members or friends, as good as that is, as helpful as that is, no amount of doing that will ever create the kind of repair that he could do if he was willing. So that's not, okay, and I want to be careful when I say this, right? Because sometimes they're not willing. Sometimes husbands are not willing. And that doesn't mean now you're stuck forever, wife, because you don't have your husband helping you out. Now you're never going to heal. That's not the case. You can heal. It just takes so much longer. And reaching out to other people is a good thing, especially when your husband isn't willing to help you in those moments. When I work with couples, when that's the case, again, it's usually because there's a feeling of shame that gets in the way of him being there to support you. So all we do is go back into his side, untie the knot that frees him up of the shame, so he then can be there for you. So I don't want you to throw out this way of looking at things if your husband has a hard time doing it, because the goal is for him to learn how to do it, to be there for you. So anyways, I wanted to clarify, if he's not willing to do it or if he doesn't know how, it's super helpful to reach out to somebody else. And you can heal independent of him, but leveraging his comfort and reassurance will just speed the process up. So I just want to make sure that's clear. So when we do this in the moment, right, we stop that experience. We don't go further. We're not going to go into sex. We might just be kissing. We stop. I tell you how much I'm hurting right now. And then you reassure me. I need your comfort. I need you to tell me. You share the pain. And then you can ask in the moment, I just need you to tell me that I am enough. That this wasn't because I wasn't good enough for you or because I wasn't attractive or whatever comfort you need from him. That's what you're going to ask in the moment to help relieve the pain that you're in. So when he's learned how to do this, he can step in and give you that and support you in a way that can heal the pain. It can start to chip away at the old hurts and when you walk through the repair process, then everything starts to feel better. Now, in these moments, that doesn't mean, okay, now let's go ahead and jump into sex. It could mean I just need that moment to be able to create the base, the foundation, so I feel comfortable enough to then eventually move into sexual intimacy. In the moment, you could think like that was all I needed. So yeah, let's keep going further then. So I do want to be intimate because that's the way that I can connect with you too. And so then you can go further. And then let's say you have a good sexual experience. That'll come on the heels of being able to get your needs met emotionally. You're able to share your pain. He's there and supports you and comforts you. That's a win. That's a huge win. And then whether you decide to continue on or not, it doesn't matter. Like the goal isn't sex. The goal is to create emotional connection and safety. And the interaction that positive interaction was bred from a trigger. So you can leverage triggers to be able to get closer to each other, to fill in those gaps in that base so it's solid. So when you maybe try to have sex again with them, maybe you're not going to get triggered as much. Maybe in that moment you'll feel like this feels okay. I feel safe. I know he cares about my pain. I know that this happened, but he's there and he supports me. Eventually what happens is the more you do this process and you're able to step out of the pattern and share how you feel, and you get the reassurance and comfort that you need. And this goes both ways, right? Because he has his own fears and insecurities and hurts that he needs your support with. But again, we just sequence this in a way that helps you move forward. So when you're able to do this, triggers not only happen less frequently when emotional safety has been created, but they happen less intensely, which is such a reassuring thing, because these triggers that you ladies are often experiencing, it doesn't have to be like that forever. The more you're able to create this kind of interaction or relationship with your spouse, the less that will happen. And to the point where it's like, it doesn't have the same sting anymore. You're able to move forward, and it's like, it's an event that happened, or like even if it was years of acting out, the pain that you feel can be healed. Like you don't have to carry this around forever. When you work in this model, it can happen relatively fast. Like it doesn't have to be 12 months. I remember working with just quick little sidebar again, working with a couple after literally five sessions of doing this work. It was an affair situation. Maybe I mentioned this in the first video, I can't remember, but I've heard this from a couple of different people recently. she mentioned how he was able to support her and reassure her pain. On the last session, like the 5th session, she was walking out of the office. She said, I feel like we're dating again. Like I feel that excitement and that passion in the relationship. So it doesn't have to take forever. And yes, circumstances can like determine how quickly this happens, but the more you just do the work, and as your husband learns how to be there for you, and as you learn how to share it in this way. So sidebar, take a step back. The more you both learn how to tap into your feelings, the more you both learn how to share it with each other, and the more you're both able to support each other and reassure each other, I promise you your relationship will change. Like that's the key to transforming where you are now to where you want to be. And so again, my confidence in this approach is unshakable because I've seen it work with so many different people with so many different struggles, so many different depths. The process is the same because we're wired this way. We need that emotional connection. So this EFT process is the means by which you can get safety, the means by which you can create these moments that heal your heart to be able to move forward in your relationship. Having a strong relationship helps us to feel individually more confident. We feel less depressed. We feel less anxious. Our immune system functions better. We feel more hopeful. We feel more confident about who we are as individuals. So many benefits come from having a solid relationship. And I wish I had research on this, right? We have a 50% divorce rate. But I was always curious, what's the percentage of people who stay together who are like truly happy? I would guess it's not like super, everybody has problems, right? And so when couples learn how to do this process, you become happy. You become whatever percentage that is. I don't know what it is, but you get into that category of like, we're good. We have struggles like everybody else, but we know what to do when we get there. When this pattern gets triggered, I know how to reach for reassurance. He knows how to comfort me. When he gets stuck, he knows how to turn to you, and you know how to reassure him. And again, like then that's the framework. You put in any situation into this process. That's why I think therapy has an end, right? You get to learn the process. Then let's say you have a fight about kids. It still is going to trigger these feelings underneath. But if you know what to do, which is share those feelings and get the support you need, then you can resolve that. Same thing about finances, intimacy, where to go on vacation, a million of the things that we fight about or like struggle with. You put it into this process and then everything can change for you. Okay, this took much longer than I thought. I had other things that I wanted to go into, so maybe I'll say that for the next one. I wanted to make sure this is like ultra super clear. That's why I spent so much time on this, because it's so important. Let me flip this back here. It is 100% crucial that you understand this framework. So I spent time to just drill. Any couple who comes in here, I tell them, like, I'm going to drill this into your head. You're going to get tired of talking about the cycle, but once you just adopt, this is what happens, and you can see each situation in that framework, then therapy ends because you know what to do when you're stuck. So if there are any questions, any situations where you might think, well, yeah, that makes sense, but what about this situation? How do we handle this? Or I don't know, what about this? Please write in the comments or share your thoughts on this. I want to be able to help because I promise you every situation fits into this. And so the next time we meet next week, I want to either answer those questions and keep moving forward. There's other things that I want to integrate that can help to create. One of the things for sure I want to talk about next week is the process of how to repair, because the repair process overlaps with what we've been talking about today, but there's a specific way to do it that actually brings resolution. So that's one of the things that I want to talk about. And then I'll talk maybe a little bit more about some of the questions that have been from the last few weeks. So I hope this is helpful. Again, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if this makes sense, resonates, or if you're getting stuck. I'd love to be able to share answers next week. Okay, good luck. I hope you apply this. Try this out. If your husbands are willing to watch this, please have them watch this and the first one as well, just so they can be on the same page with you as you're trying to move forward and create this connection in your relationships. Okay, good luck. We'll talk to you soon.